Welcome back to the Easy Button Investor Show, you guys. I am your host, well, now co-host, one of the hosts, and I have an exciting announcement today to make for you guys that are listening to us weekly, which a lot of you guys are. And one of the biggest things that I've heard feedback-wise in the past 6 months from you guys who listen to the show is keeping episodes as we film them and going even deeper into topics. Right now, we do 7 to 12 minutes going into a specific topic. There's a lot of them you guys wanted us to dive deeper into. So today I have with me Mr. Tucker Merrihew. He has been in this game much longer than I have, probably much longer than if you're listening to this than you have. He's been around the block a few times, and I'm really excited to have him as the co-host of the Easy Button Investor Show. We're going to be doing it together. Now we aren't sure exactly what that's going to look like. There'll probably be a mix of us doing solo shows, a mix of us doing guest shows, and a mix of us doing shows just us two. So it'll be a variety here at the start until you guys let us know what you like best. But super exciting stuff. I actually hosted Tucker's show briefly back in the day, which was the Real Deals podcast when he has stepped back from that. But he has been on the mic much longer than myself and brings a lot to that. So Tucker, you want to do a quick intro on kind of your real estate specific stuff, elevator version, and then also experience on the mic and what you hope this show becomes for people that are out there in what you call listener land.
Yeah, out there in listener land. Sure. First, I guess for those of you wondering why am I here, I guess we should connect the dots on the fact that
There you go. Yep.
me and Cole we originally, started what is now Easy Button Investor together. And so that's been, there was a slightly different version before I came on as partners. But ultimately, we built this business to today, what is the much better version of it together. And as of late, really, it has a lot to do with him. But either way, we've been business partners for a long time, kind of behind the scenes in that business. And me personally, I had a few different podcasts that I ran over the years, one of which was, one of the most successful there was, given it was back in the beginning of time, it seems like when podcasts first started. I think looking back, I was looking at the date, it was like end of 2013 or maybe mid 2013 that we started that show.
And ended my freshman year of high school.
Yeah. So, and that was, just to give people a little context, I started the show after I had already had maybe 10 years in the real estate business. And so, half of that time was in the mortgage business and then owning a mortgage company. And then the post, real estate collapse of 2007, 2008 was all as, actual real estate investor, developer, ultimately home builder. And so at the time I started that show, we were building high-end single family spec homes throughout the Portland area. And then that show blew up. I met a lot of people, maybe some of you listening here, maybe not, but, that turned into a big thing. We had a big community. We put on events. And then ultimately I started another show called the Portland Real Estate Podcast, which still runs today, which is, basically the biggest driver of real estate news in all of Oregon. And I've got two great co-hosts that I had when I was there that I handed off to them. And then now I live in Naples, Florida, and I did a kind of a specialty type show when I moved here with the previous producer of the Bigger Pockets show back in the day when Brandon and all the, we'll call them the bigger, more recognizable names were on the show. And that was kind of one of those flagship shows that got more downloads than everybody. So a great guy named Kevin, he helped me produce that show. And that was a lot of work. It turned out great, but it was just a ton of work. And so I'm happy to be back on the microphone with you. This is a much simpler, more fluid version of getting information from us to our listeners without, all the tedious editing that is required with the type of show that I did when I moved here, which was called The Journey. But beyond that, now I renovate houses, I build high-end new construction, and we built a large rental portfolio here. Large, relatively speaking. It's all single families. We don't have, like 8,000, multifamily units, but that's not what my lane is at the moment. So we built a portfolio of vacation rentals here, and I run those as well as run our day-to-day real estate business of spec building and renovating and selling houses. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm excited to be back on the microphone. Like I said, it's been a little while. I had to kind of take a step back from the microphone to kind of actually rebuild my real estate businesses as I left, 20 years on the West Coast and moved to a place that I knew absolutely no one, but it seemed like paradise, and it is. But it took a little while to kind of get all the connections built, get all the people in place, understand the market, and just kind of rebuild a real estate business from scratch. So I've now built 2 real estate businesses from scratch. And so hopefully I'll be a decent asset on this podcast in terms of kind of giving you guys some of the things that I've learned along the way that I consider valuable.
And I'll give you guys some context. I think I first met Tucker when I was 19. I went on his show, The Real Deals podcast. Someone made an intro, and I just started doing some, sending some cold calls to random buddies of mine. And it was a little bit of a business, but it wasn't much of a business. And I was making some money, but I was 19. I had no idea how to run a business. And that was kind of the beginning of our relationship where Tucker, I don't remember, I think it was a phone call or something. And he was like, hey, just letting you know, if you want to turn this into a business, I can definitely help. And that's when we co-founded what now is Easy Button Investor together. And our journey has led us to a point where our ultimate, goal now, which is me, I'm going on, that was almost 7 years ago when we had met, 2019, 2020 or so, 2019. What we've turned Easy Button into is a platform to take people from an amateur in real estate to a professional. And I have a couple hundred deals under my belt. Tucker has many more than me, but he has a brain for this business that I think makes the business enjoyable. A lot of people out there build themselves a prison and build themselves something that's not that profitable, not that enjoyable. And his take and his understanding of real estate and what it means to be an operator and what it means to actually take home money and make money, I think is one of the better sounding boards for people to listen to, because he kind of brings a no-nonsense, realistic approach to business, to life that all of you guys will find incredibly valuable. And we're going to be talking about the same topics, but in different ways. We have very similar views on most things, but we differ in probably a few as well. And he brings a level of experience and years on the mic, years in the business that I haven't lived long enough to have. And there's no way you can there's certain kinds of wisdom that you have to just go through things for long enough to have. And so I'm excited to have those on the show today. And on today's show, we are going to talk about that topic of the delta and difference between an amateur and a professional in real estate. So Tucker, let's start, I think, at the starting line with, you've walked me through it before, but the basics of how you think about that overarching theme of an amateur in real estate and a professional in real estate. And, I look at it as amateurs fizzle out, professionals are here for a long time. And those core key themes you see in each of those avatars, and why we're putting so much emphasis on helping people bridge that gap and become a professional.
Yeah, I guess, well, first off, I guess I must be old. You haven't been alive long enough to come at me. But anyway, I guess I am kind of old, and at least in hoop years. I don't know about real estate years. I think
that's going to be the only downside about doing the show together is.
Yeah. Well, it's good though, because it's 2 different perspectives from 2 different vantage points, right? That all want to go to the same place. But, my biggest gripe with this business for the longest time, and I used to do a segment on my old show, and I caught a lot of shit for it, to be honest, but I really didn't care. Now I could care less at all about even giving people shit because it's just not worth my time. But there was always people in the education space that would pitch these ideas of how the business should be done, right? Whether that's ultimately building yourself a prison that you're stuck in, or it's like, hey, don't worry about setting up a company. Don't worry about business cards. Don't worry about a name. Just go do deals, right? And then once you do deals, you can build out the rest. And I understand what they're saying, but at the end of the day, would you start any other business out there, or virtually any other business without, okay, let's think about a business plan. Let's think about a business name. Let's think about registering a business of some sort, or whether or not, how we're going to run it. Are we going to run it as a sole proprietor? Are we going to run it as an LLC? What are we going to do? Right. And so just, I don't want to dive too far in the weeds yet, but like just those little things that cause you to treat what you're doing like a business versus kind of a fly by night hobby can change the entire trajectory of what you do. And so, there was just a lot of mantra out there about just go send out mail or just make some phone calls and just do a deal and don't worry about the other stuff. And it's ultimately then if it does work, then you end up one of those business owners that doesn't even know how to run your own business or your books or your finances or how much money I should be spending on marketing or any of those things. So it's really just about becoming a student of not only real estate as a whole, because that's super important. Also, I think a lot of people really undervalue that, but also becoming a student of like how to run an actual business. And if you don't do that, really, I've said this before to you, but I call them pond skimmers, right? You're just skimming the top of the pond and you're hoping that maybe you hit something and you make some money and then that prolongs you. But if you don't, you're just going to go to the next pond and you're going to skim that one and you're going to skim the next one. And so, I think it's super important that whatever you do, and the old saying is like, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to commit time to, right? Like, you and I love playing hoops. You never played hoops just to be okay. You played hoops because you wanted to be really, really good at it, right? And you are. But me and everything that I do, if I'm going to spend time doing it, I want to be really good at it. I don't want to just kind of skim the top and try and take the low hanging fruit and call it good. But I think a lot of people fall victim to that. And so, real estate investing specifically is probably one of the worst niches for that, because, there's so much mantra out there about, just don't worry about everything else. Just try and do a deal. Right. But at the end of the day, there's so much education that goes into running a real estate business, because it's not just the business itself, but it's the asset of real estate, or which asset class you're going after and valuing it, how to get the owners of those, that specific asset class to respond, and how you should talk to them, and, how you should build rapport with them, because they're all slightly different. And so you really have to become a student of this game. You can't just skim the top of the pond. And those people that do, and they put in the time and they actually really enjoy it. And that's the other thing I see online, and this really pisses me off. And there's some bigger named influencers that say this all the time, and I just want to slap the shit out of them every time I hear it. But it's like, I don't even like real estate. I just do it because I get paid, right? And it's like, well, then go do something else. Like, why would you do it, right? Like, and ultimately, I don't think that's true. I just think that that's true for people that don't find the right niche within real estate. Like, I may not really love the idea of doing self-storage, right? I get it, pencils, and it makes money and all that. But like, I build self-storage units and I go look at them. I go, they look great. Okay. I wouldn't get excited about it, which is why we build high-end spec homes. I get excited about it. And obviously the money's good too. But, you got to find the thing that you really enjoy. And, rehabbing hood houses your entire career is not something you're going to enjoy your whole career. That's a stepping stone to get to the next place of capital accumulation, so that you can then go do something else. And so, you got to love what you do. And so real estate is so vast that, like, if you don't love the lane that you're in, that doesn't mean you have to stay in that lane forever. You can deviate from that. You can find the lane that you do. And so I think ultimately, to kind of sum it up here, I'll hand it back to you. A professional gets into it. They commit time to it because they want to be good at it. If they're going to spend time doing it, they want to be the best they can be. And number two is they realize that just because I start here doesn't mean I end up there, right? You can kind of meander within the real estate business and find the specific asset class of real estate that really lights you up and that you really enjoy, not only finding the deals, but then turning them over and maximizing the value of those.
Yeah, when I think one of the core things we're trying to create with Easy Button Investor is a platform to help people understand how their career progresses. Yeah, and you've called it out before of, usually people's career, they get in this by being an agent or they're wholesaling, and they end up flipping and then they end up developing. But there's so many people out there that are doing 60 flips a year and random markets that can barely make ends meet, but it's incredibly complex. It's incredibly brain damaging. The return on brain damage is terrible and it's not enjoyable. And I think that's one of the things, it's kind of an Elon Musk frame of why do things have to be this way? When he takes over Twitter and knocks out 80% of the staff, I think all of you guys should be listening to that of just because how you are doing things, how you are currently doing them doesn't mean it has to be that way. That can be a partnership that you're in. That can be a business where you are doing a lot of revenue, but you're not making any money. It's complex. I enjoy, we've done a few of our offsites in Naples and I enjoy it. And in the frame, and I think the way Tucker lives, what he talks about in his business of, it's a different feel than a lot of people that I meet where it's chaos. They never have time. Every time you reach out, it's, I don't have time. They're always busy, but not getting anything done, not making any money. And I think the end goal for all of you guys listening to this is to make money. And Tucker point on the part of not liking real estate, like for me personally, I like operating a business. That's what I love. That's what I spend my time on is the people, processes, systems. Like that's what I geek out on more. So whatever the product for Easy Button, I'm very passionate about the product. And I think you have to be to a certain extent, to have the conviction to put the time in to become really good at it. But to his point, you're not stuck and you're not limited to whatever you're doing. And I wanted to backtrack to one of the things he talked about, just the basics of being a professional investor, of LLCs and protection and bank accounts and websites and things that are basic. if you guys don't do the basics at the beginning, it only gets harder to do them once you've started doing a bunch of deals. And the people that I think go BK, get really in trouble in this business are the people that never, ever do the basics. They say at the beginning, oh, I'm kind of going to Wild West it. I'm not going to do the basics. But then they get to the point where they're doing 10, 20, 30 deals a year and they're still not doing the basics. And that's where you get in trouble because you don't have insurance on a property. You don't have an umbrella policy for yourself. You don't have just the basics of business in place to protect yourself. And the delta, in my opinion, between a amateur and a professional in this business is maybe wider than any other industry, where the people who are professionals, who take care of all the nuanced variables, who know their numbers, who know how to track their data, who understand their financials, who understand their bookkeeping and taxes, who understand how to operate a project, who understand how to hire right, how to train right, how to manage right, who understand how to get leads in the door at a cost per lead that makes sense. Those people don't just have a slightly better business, they have a light years better business in terms of their profit, their enjoyment, and what that looks like. And that's what we're trying to create with the show and with what we do for people. So again, we did a community call yesterday, and just going through, there was probably 30 people on that call. I don't think one of them even had, all 10 out of a 10 basic checklist of what they should have in their business, from a follow-up campaign to a nurture sequence to an understanding of their logo and those to sellers and just the basics of this stuff. And that is, let's say you're doing 5 flips this year and you want to increase your income by 50% next year. A lot of you guys can do that, not even by adding a ton more deals into the system, but just by doing the basics of your business better. And that's what I think people don't understand. And that is a lot of the value that we're going to provide here. So I want to dive into a specific part of the journey of kind of amateur to professional, and kind of take it back to your journey, Tucker. When you look back on your career, I have a point for mine, and I'll go through that after. When you look back on your career, when is the point you think when you went from an amateur to professional, that switch flipped for you, and what that looked like and what you did that makes you go, okay, that is why that's how I became a professional and what I do?
I think it's probably a twofold answer. First, it started when I actually hired my first, call him marketing manager / office manager. And so at that point, you're taking on the responsibility of somebody else's livelihood within that business, right? I had a number of other employees in mortgage business and otherwise, before that, but within that business, it really made me, kind of double down on the fact like, okay, I need to run this like a business every day. Like we have to have something that we're trying to accomplish every single day, whether that's with lead generation, lead follow-up, deal signing, whatever it is. And so that was probably the first step to becoming a professional, because that now you're responsible for somebody else. And that's kind of the kick in the butt a lot of people need to kind of treat it like a business every day. But to be fair, we've seen a lot of people that hire somebody like that position and then they don't come in the office anymore and they wonder why the business doesn't work, right? They think that they could just hire that person and they'll take care of everything with minimal training and the business will hum along and do everything that you want it to do, which is definitely not the case. The second point was when I realized that, a lot of the, again, the kind of the mantra that was around back then, and even now to some extent, but it was way more back then. It was all about like, how many deals can you do, right? And, I understand again, it depends on the facet of real estate you're in. If you're in wholesaling, the more deals you do, the more money you make. But if you get into the fix and flip game and you're renovating and reselling property, saying you did 100 deals this year, 50 deals this year, 30 deals this year, that's not a badge of honor. It's like it's a scarlet letter. I mean, it means that you probably lost a few years of your life. Hopefully you didn't get divorced or lose a relationship along the way. You're probably stressed as hell because it's such a capital intensive business. And a lot of the capital that investors borrow, especially on the front of their careers, at high interest rates. So that debt service amount is so ridiculous. So then you've got all this stuff in the pipeline and all this money getting spent. And, if one deal doesn't work out or the buyer pulls the plug or fails inspections or whatever it is, right? It just creates all this additional stress. And so that was the second point where I was like, you know what? We have enough. At that point, I'd become my own general contractor too. We have enough construction experience. We had raised enough capital. I was like, is there a better way to do the business after you kind of get to that first level of experience and understanding? And you can't jump straight to what I'm saying here, but once you get to the point where you can jump, should you? And so that's when we took on our first we'll call it high-end renovation. And that was 2010, 2009, 10, end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And I still remember I paid $440,000 for the house, which I know that doesn't seem like much now, but in Portland, $440,000 for a piece of shit house back in 2010 in the back end of the real estate collapse. It was a huge number. And, we ended up selling the house for, I think, just under $900,000. But the real aha moment was when we sold it. It kind of proved the idea that, this can be done. It can be done easily, even in a very slow market, because we sold that house in literally 10 minutes. Somebody paid us like $15,000 over list cash with like an 8-day close. And so at that point I was like, well, there's really no reason to argue with that. But, so, taking that project on was kind of the beginning of becoming a professional in terms of how I underwrite everything that I'm doing within the business, right? So I hire employees, I underwrite, okay, what are my systems and processes and how am I running the day-to-day business so that I inspire these people to stay and do the best job that they can and train them. And then the next step was, okay, we're doing all of this work with a whole lot of friction and we're making some money. Is there a better way to do the business with the same human capital and the same actual, dollar capital that we have and make more money and have less stress and have less friction? And so when we bought that house, we renovated it, we sold it, and we did really well. That was my next aha moment of like, well, why do I got to do so many deals a year if I, can master the art of marketing and finding these off-market opportunities? Why not just market for the ones that make me the most money and cause me the least amount of brain damage? And so, it wasn't like we turned it on. That's all we didn't have brain damage and issues and things moving forward from that point on. But that was the beginning of it where I really started to look at, do I enjoy what I'm doing every day within what I'm doing, right? Real estate wise. And so, that was 14 years ago, and I've continued to refine what that is that I feel like, I enjoy doing. And now, coming to Naples and being able to restart completely from zero, I feel like I've now built the most exact version that I can of something that I enjoy doing every day. Of course, you still got problems and friction and brain damage. That's running a business. You're never going to get rid of that, but you can at least, kind of limit it as much as possible, and you can maximize, doing the parts of the business that you love as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that entrepreneurs, I think about this a lot, this concept of like pain threshold and return on brain damage. I don't think entrepreneurs scale past their pain threshold. And I think you reach that pain threshold really quickly if you're just going after the amount of deals you can possibly do, the amount of units you can move, the amount of rentals units you can add without looking at the underlying profitability of any of it. And you kind of get into this, look how big mine is measuring contest earlier in your career because of the podcast, because of what's out there online. And you just try to accumulate as much external facing value as you can. And external facing value when you walk into a bar is, hey, here's how many deals I do. It's the guy that says he owns 3,000 units, but really just owns 5% of them or 3% of them. Like those are the kind of, that's what most of the ongoing conversation is online. And that's what makes it challenging at the start. But I think for you guys, we just went through, just listen to that. I think the one thing that he talked through in his own words was that he found a level of profit that he wanted to make the brain damage, because there's brain damage in every business. But as long as the profit that you're making from that business exceeds, in some, I don't know, you can't really put it in unit measurement, but exceeds the stress that you have in your business, you'll keep scaling because you enjoy it, or you'll scale it as big as you want it. But if you understand the profit you're making, it's really easy to say, hey, I just need to do 4 or 5 deals a year, or 10 deals a year, or 12 deals a year. Like, so that kind of leads me to my point of when I came professional, we did almost $3 million in a year when I was 21 in wholesaling income. And at the end of the year, I was like, I made like 150, 175 grand, which is not bad money when you're 21. You actually feel like you're pretty wealthy when you're 21. You make almost 200 grand. But to me, I was like, what I just put myself through for that year, I'm not in college. I'm not having fun on the weekends. I was in a office in Renton that I'd personally guaranteed at 19 with bullet holes in the windows, and guy got murdered out in the parking lot, like not in a great part of town, for 10 hours a day. And that is where, ruining my mental health and my well-being to create that. And that was, to me, when I sat down, I go, whoa, okay, this like measuring contest of look how big mine is that has been marketed to me isn't the game that I want to play. And I left a partnership and I kind of rebuilt what it meant to me to run a business that I like. And for a lot of you guys listening, you don't need to have a massive business to meet a lot of your goals. Like you can have a lean team, and overstaffing and having too many people is not a flex. Deal count's not a flex. Unit count's not a flex. What's a flex is you saying, hey, I want to make $300,000 a year, travel a lot and buy 2 rental properties a year. And you do that by doing 12 wholesale deals a year, or two high profit flips a year, or 1 or 2 new builds, if that's what you want to learn, and angle your business around. But I think the number one thing that professionals have is they have an intense clarity on what success means to them in their business in terms of what they make, what their goal is, what they're progressing towards. Amateurs don't. They're just doing deals to do deals. And at a certain point, we're all amateurs at one point. Like you have to get started. You have to do those first couple of deals to even have the conversation about what you want it to look like and build the skills. But as you get into it and get deeper into it, it's so important to sit down and go, whoa, okay, what am I actually building? What do I want to make? What does this need to look like? And what's the simplest version? Because there's, again, to Tucker's point, the year that we did $3 million in revenue, no one showed up at my office and handed me a medal and said, congratulations, you just almost killed yourself to make, $200,000 and grow your real estate business and have 10 employees in office. Like no one came and congratulated me on that. No one cares. And so you need to focus on building. That's what professionals do, is they focus on building a business that they like and they care about. Well, Tucker, I want to, as we head to kind of towards the end of the show here, I want to kind of encapsulate in your head what you want this show to become for people. In your head, what we're building here at Easy Button Investor, and kind of bridging the gap of what they can expect from us on an ongoing basis as you see it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing and the epiphany that we collectively came to is that, number one, your ability to generate off-market opportunities in whatever facet of real estate that you're interested in. But let's just, majority of people start in the world of single family, which is, obviously where I'm still at. But the ability to generate those leads or understand how those leads are generated is the first and most important thing, right? Because then you're not reliant on MLS and realtors and, depending on market conditions, bidding wars, or, still overpaying compared to what you could probably pay if you were just able to source these deals off market. But the bigger part of that is because obviously we provide a service to help generate lead flow for investors. And there's lots of things that you can do, but the most important part isn't generating the leads, because the leads can be generated a variety of different ways. The most important part is, how do you then deal with those leads? How do you underwrite those leads? How do you negotiate with those people? How do you follow up with those people properly? How do you then ultimately convert a percentage of those leads to the types of deals that you're trying to do? And that, I think, is the biggest void in this business. In fact, I know it is, because I've been training people to do exactly that for 10 plus years now. And so, that providing clarity on exactly how to do that, number one, it'll help people that are spending money to generate the leads to then convert more to make it a real business. But number two is it will make them a professional in the arena of marketing and lead conversion, right? And that's the point where, you become able to create whatever business you want for yourself, right? Once you understand how the leads are generated, you understand how to underwrite them, how to negotiate with them, and how to convert them inside out and backwards. It's like you could pay yourself for the rest of your life doing whatever you want to do. And so it's almost like a magical skill that really isn't taught much in this business. Like the ideas of it are taught, but the nuances of actually how to do it properly are not taught, or they're not taught well. And so I think this show is going to kind of help support not only our clients, but people listening in terms of learning those skills and really mastering those skills. And hopefully, they like what we say here enough, they can, dig in and get in touch with us other ways also. But at the same time, I know that's the most valuable skill that we can pass along to people. And so if we can kind of pull back the curtain and, between you and me, we've had, gazillion seller, off market lead phone calls and negotiation strategies and types of crazy people that we've talked to and types of normal people we've talked to and all that. And so if we can pull back the curtain on that and we can give you guys some real tangible strategies and what to do, how to do's within that arena, I think it will be incredibly valuable. And I think that's a space that just it's underserved in our, world of real estate investing. But the reality is that most people on the microphone or that are teaching, they have never really done it to the extent that Cole and I have done it. So they can't teach you the nuances of it. And so we're hoping to bring that to you guys. And I know it'll be tremendously valuable, but that's my ultimate goal with this show. And of course, be entertaining and, all that.
It's no fun. Yeah. Yeah. I'd piggyback about that. I agree. I think ultimately what we're building at Easy Button Investor as a company is a platform for you guys for once you decide what that dream is, you have all the tools to build that, from finding the deals off market to executing on the deals to building a team, to having the software and systems that you need. It's a place that you can step into and not have to step out of as you create your kind of ideal dream business in terms of what you're going to do, what asset class you're going to go after, what extra strategy you're going to roll with. But it's a platform to build that on. And to Tucker's point, that's what we're going to do here on the show right now. Now having two brains on the show talking about this topic with so much experience, so many deals under our belt is incredibly valuable. So as always, you guys, to wrap the show today, we are available on all places you listen, Spotify, Apple, wherever else you consume content. These are going to be on YouTube as well under my page, but also under the Easy Button Investor page on YouTube, all hosted there. And exciting things in 2025, obviously. The show is going to look a lot different in 2025 and beyond with us co-hosting the show now and continuing to create content here on this platform. And again, some might be individual shows. We're going to do some together. Some might be guest shows. So stay tuned. We have a lot coming, and we are always open as you guys reach out because a ton of you do. And other than that, like I always say, you're only one deal away. And thanks for coming on, Tucker. Appreciate it. And obviously they're going to be seeing your face and hearing your voice a ton more here in 2025.
My pleasure. Happy to be back on the microphone. See you on the next one, guys.
See you.